Good evening and welcome to Beyond Room 313 Symposium with me, your host, Thomas Sheridan, and my colleague, Jason Roba over there in Seattle. Tonight we have a special guest. Actually, we have two guests, and we have Carlo and Florence from nextstopwhoknows.com, I think it's called. Yeah. Anyway, it's a fantastic travel blog, and these two folks live in the west of Ireland, but not as west as I do. They live in Roscommon, and the blog is absolutely beautiful, but they've also got a story to tell. It's got some wonderful writing in it. And they also have visited countries that I've never even heard of. And this is why I wanted them on the show. And after speaking to Jason, is because we're kind of locked down now, and we can't travel, and the world is closed off to us. And I thought by bringing on Florence and Carlo that they could actually open up the world again from memory and things like that, to actually put us in a positive position about travel and getting our freedom to roam and move right back. So welcome, guys. Delighted you're here.
Thanks very much. Thanks for having us, guys. Pleasure.
Now, the ubiquitous question, how did you get started with the blog?
Well, it all started back in early 2000. Well, actually roll back to about 2011. We used to kind of go away like your typical holidays. We go on a 2-week holiday here. We went to Africa volunteering in 2009. So we'd done a bunch of travel together, and we said, you know what, let's start doing a blog, kind of recording and documenting our travels. I was always into photography, so that was a kind of went hand in hand. So back in 2012, then we went on a trip, and when we came back, I says, okay, let's plan the next trip. We want to go to South America the following year. And Flora came back to me and says, no, she goes, I don't want to go there. She goes, because I don't want to come home, have all our money spent, have to save up again, rinse and repeat. So I was kind of a little taken aback by this. And I was, well, what are we going to do? You know, and she says, well, you figure out some way that we can make money on the road, and let's try that. So that led me down the route of looking into writing content for people's blogs, companies, different websites, and started doing that slowly. You know, got a couple of clients on board just by reaching out to them saying, hey, I can write some content for your blog. And, you know, it started like in that approach. And slowly, about a couple of months later, Flower, who was working in childcare at the time, was starting to see that, you know, I was generating some decent income doing this on the side. And we then, in late 2012, made the decision, you know, we were going to pack our bags, head off to Thailand with the intentions of spending 6 to 7 months there, try and build up the business as best we could and see how it goes from there. So that, in a nutshell, Thomas, is how we kind of got started.
But roll back, the blog is in existence since 2009.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, that's correct.
It's really quite beautiful how Florence said, let's go, and kind of created this intention that manifested. I think there's something really gorgeous about that. It was almost like, you know, let's put it into action, and action happened. And it's, you know, what you were saying about making decent money from the writing for other blogs. It's quite surprising that there are lots of ways you can make money in this world outside convention, especially now. Like, one of the good things about globalization is you can spread yourself all over the world in terms of doing things like that. So sure. There's a lot of freedom for people who are creative and want to travel. But I love the idea of moving to Thailand and setting that up as a base to move from, because you're in access to all kind of exotic places from them. Exactly. So what happened after that? What happened after Thailand? What was it? Did you say, okay, we have enough money to do this permanently, or were we kind of like living from week to week kind of thing?
So I was a pure skeptic before we left. I was like, your typical person, you can't make money online. It's all a scam. I'm not filling out surveys all day. So once we got to Thailand, we rented a little apartment in Phuket. And we just, as Carlo said, started out writing for different other companies, and it kind of snowballed from there. And like, it took us about a month, 2 months, and we were like, God, we can live here on the money that we're making very comfortably. And once we got that realization, we were like, okay, a kind of light bulb went off, and we were like, we moved here to enjoy the lifestyle, to make some money. Now we're making the money, we're not really enjoying the lifestyle because we were locked up in the apartment for 10, 12 hours every day typing. So then we kind of had the light bulb moment where we need to hire writers beneath us. And we kind of project management between our clients and the writers. So that freed us up a lot. It took a lot of hard work to kind of get to the stage where it was running like a well-oiled machine. But once it did, we were working for 3-4 hours a day and enjoying the rest of the day. But we were actually making more money because we could spend more time getting clients. So it was just kind of, and once we did that, it gave us so much more freedom. We stayed in Thailand for a couple of months, and then we planned other trips. We went to Vietnam, we went to Australia, we went to South America. We could really see that we could balance the life of working and traveling, and that opened a whole load of doors.
Yeah,
I bet your families thought you were mad.
Oh, crazy. Like I was working in a creche and like making a couple of 300-400 euros a month, working like really draining job. 304 a week, sorry. Yeah. And everyone at that stage was like, oh my God, why would you give up a job? Like, you're crazy, you have a full-time job. And I just went to my boss and I was like, look, we want to make a go of this, see if it works. And she was really understanding. She was like, there's a job here for you if you ever come back. But everyone was expecting us to come back. That was the difference.
Yeah.
They were all like, oh yeah, it might work. But deep down they were like, they'll be back.
Yeah. And myself, I was running my own small local poker company, running poker tournaments in pubs and hotels around this area for the previous 7 years. But I knew that if us going, everyone thought we were going to go in for a few months and coming home, but I knew that in my heart and soul that we were going to give this 100% of an effort. So I had no intentions of coming back to the kind of, because of the poker industry, you had to be here, you had to go to the pubs, the hotels to run the tournaments. And I was like all about trying to get, independence from location, if you like. So I kind of knew deep down, if this goes well, we're just going to go run at it 100% and take it from there. And thankfully, it's snowballed from there, and it's been pretty good ever since.
Yeah, but had we listened, we'd probably still be here.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's so cool. That's inspirational to me because a lot of I'm a composer, a media composer, so I write music for the visual medium, and I've heard of people getting together and doing something similar to what you're talking about. With rather than being the singular composer and just working your ass off all day and spending 12, 16 hours just write, and then do it again the next day, 6-7 days a week, you'll burn out in a few years. But that idea though of putting a team together and having a few people right out of college or a few friends getting together and making it working as the project manager essentially, or the head of department in this industry, and then having a few people and everybody with royalties that gets distributed equally across, and that way there's a greater volume of music that can be composed and produced, and not everyone's not working 12-16 hours a day in their life, so there's still time to do what you love doing.
Exactly.
I got to think about that for myself too and find a team, so that's inspirational. So
it takes the workload off for sure.
How long were you guys? Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, finish, Jason. I didn't finish.
How long was it that you went from like work like that into putting together a team, then having that team going? Just curious, like was it about a?
Well, to be honest, we were doing a lot, as Florence said, the first 1 or 2 months, and then as we took on a few writers, it slowly dribbled down. Like my focus was trying to recruit new writers that were decent. So I was looking through the likes. Back then it was called Odesk and Elance. It's now called freelancer.com. But so I was trolling through them, putting up job posts, kind of vetting them in a way that I, try best I can to try and get the writers kind of down to a good distilled form. And Flora was kind of looking after the quality of the content that those writers were giving back. So we kind of split up our jobs. We were no longer writing anymore. And as we progressed, we got up to a couple of years back, we got up to 40 writers under us. Now we have significantly reduced that since, but we got up to 40 different writers in it was about 2016, 17, we were up to that amount. So,
but by the time we had got it really nailed, it was about a year.
About a year,
Okay.
yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Okay.
About a year.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's nothing. That's a very short time.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Like 40 people working for you was like seriously impressive after a year.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there were 40 like independent freelance writers spread across the UK, Ireland, the States, and Australia. So it wasn't the case. It was like we had our own hub or something. You know, it was just they didn't know each other. No two writers know each other. It's just that the way we've kept it. So our job just turned into project managers up until, and we kept that going up until about 3 years now. Yeah. So then 3 years ago, we actually hired a project manager to more or less replace us in that position.
Cool.
From reading your blog, you're just like me. I get excited about everywhere I go, even to other parts of Ireland that I've never been to. I think maybe that's an Irish thing, well, some of us anyway, an island thing.
Yeah.
But I noticed that you're just like me. You get captivated by cultural differences, and you just suck them all up. But what was the first place you went to where it was so strange or so culture shock that it really hit you for the first time?
Well, we went head first back in Carlo kind of skipped that, but in the beginning we went to Africa in 2009 doing a volunteer trip. So this was our first trip together, like in that part of the world. It was our first backpacking trip. So we set off for 3 months. We landed in Kenya, in one of the biggest, craziest
Nairobi.
In Nairobi, in one of the biggest, craziest bus stations. As you do, we had arranged to go couch surfing, and for anyone that doesn't know what couch surfing is, you basically get in contact with the local who lives there, and you stay on their couch, or if they have a bed, you stay in their bed. So we arrived in Nairobi, just the two of us with our big backpacks, and we were like, oh my God, this place is crazy. So this 7 foot tall woman came running towards us, and she was like, Carlo, and Carlo was like, yeah, that's us. So it was Beatrice, our couch surfing host. So she grabs my bag, she grabs Carlo's bag, she throws them over her shoulders, and off she goes, come with me. And you can imagine us two standing out like, I don't know what.
Two paddies.
Everyone's staring at us. We hadn't a clue what was going on, so we just followed her. And from there then, that was just the craziest. I don't think we've ever felt as overwhelmed than we did at that time.
We were as green as the colour of Ireland we were back then. You know, we had so little experience, but it was such a massive cultural shock to us back then. But we loved it. You know, we were treated really well. We went from a few nights in Nairobi. We had arranged to go down to Arusha in Tanzania, where we spent 5 weeks there, where we found our own volunteer projects, because we didn't want to go and pay a middleman to, $5,000 and hey, you go and, so what we did, we funded the trip ourselves, paid our own way, everything. And we found a hostel in Arusha that does find you kind of placements in like schools or orphanages that you can help do some work. Looking back, I know there's the whole volunteerism thing that, a lot of people, don't like and stuff like that. Again, we were so naive. We didn't know any of this back then.
You have to start somewhere. Yeah,
you do. Yeah, you do. Absolutely.
I know that feeling of being the green, being sort of like standing out. A few years ago, I was in Sri Lanka, and some town in the middle of nowhere, quite populated too, a fairly big town, and it was in the Tamil region, and I was the only white person, and I'm the whitest white man on earth, and I was walking down the street in the city of Tamils and Sinhalese people, and there was no problems or anything, but it was the first time in my life I ever, I now know what it was like when I was growing up in Dublin, and you'd see the odd black guy walking down the street. You're different,
Yeah, absolutely.
It's weird. It's really weird. It's not a threatening way, but in the same place, I saw a guy making coffins, and I got talking to him for a few minutes, and he was making coffins that would mount on the top of the tuk-tuk, you know, like the
Yeah.
and
Right.
that was the hearse, right? And the coffin was all painted up and everything. And this one had Elvis on it, and the guy apparently loved Elvis and stuff like that. And it was just like, this is what travel is about, isn't it? Those kind of mad experiences, you know.
Exactly, and everywhere is different. Every culture is different. All the people, the food, the smells, the atmospheres, and that's what we loved about it so much.
Oh, it's just magic, like, and you know, looking back, and for anyone that's traveled like that, there's nothing that beats it.
Nothing.
You know.
Did you ever have any scare? Go ahead. Let Jason ask first.
Oh, looks like you've been to Chernobyl as well. Is that right?
Oh, that was 2018. We went there. I think
that was his idea.
I mean, we had actually, like, I always wanted to go there, and then we were traveling around Georgia, Armenia, and Azerbaijan back then, and then, funny enough, we saw, you know, the HBO series Chernobyl came out, and we watched that, and I was like, okay, we got to do this. Like, we got to do this now before the crowds really start going there, which always happens. So he says, yeah, let's head up to the Ukraine for a while, and we did a two-day, 1-night tour of Chernobyl, and it was absolutely amazing. You know, really fascinating to learn about the history of what happened. Obviously, I've read a few books on it since. Get to meet the babushkas, who are kind of like the granny and granddad that live in the countryside of Chernobyl, outside the exclusion zone, where originally they were forced away from their homes back when this happened. But they says they want to come back home, so they actually snuck back in the territory a couple of months later, and some of them are still living there. And it was very interesting because when they were asked, like, why would you come back to somewhere that's, you know, full of radiation? And they says, we're not afraid of radiation, we're afraid of starvation, which was a very kind of strong, you know, message. And I thought, like, wow, you know, to have that mentality that, you know, we just want to die where we're happy. We're going to die sometime. We might as well live our life the way we want and, you know, die happy. But Chernobyl was unreal.
I hear the stories of the wolves that are living around the reactor and stuff. It's almost like a dystopian sci-fi. Did you actually see the city itself? Is it still?
Yeah, we were in Pripyat, and we stayed in the hotel. There's only one tourist hotel in Pripyat, and we stayed in there, and we had to be locked in at night, obviously, kind of like where some countries are going through now. But we were locked in there, I think, after 8 o'clock in the evening, so that no one will go out exploring without your tour guides, because obviously there are some hot spots there that have, you know, huge amounts of radiation. So it was but it was a really surreal experience to be living, you know, to be visiting a place like that where literally time stands still.
What was the kind of emotional tone there? Was it just calm, or was there like a creepy, kind of eerie, haunted? No?
It was just like being in a horror movie. It was so still, like nothing. And nature has reclaimed everything, so like it's flourishing there, so green, so lovely, but it's just like it's like one big movie set is all I can describe it as.
And empty apartment buildings.
Yeah,
like we went into people's houses, and like there was newspapers on the floor with back from 1986. There was like pots, pans. It's really eerie because people obviously were just told, okay, you're leaving, you're coming back in 3 days. So all of their belongings, for the most part, are still there.
You know.
And do you have to get a special government person to bring you in and out?
Yeah, you have. Now, there are unofficial, you know, they're called stalkers, I think. There's an actual PlayStation game created on this whole thing where they kind of infiltrate the exclusion zone, unbeknown to the cops and the military, and to take people that are willing to go on this journey with them. But those guys are like crazy, because they'll bring you to like rivers and streams, and they'll like start filling up the water, you know, just to show you, like, you know, there's no radiation here compared to what we're being told and all that. But we went with obviously an official tour guide, and
they're cranking down on the illegal ones.
Yeah, they're trying to crank down on those.
Well, the Ukraine gets lots of money for from the European Union to keep, because of the accident. And the radiation, it's amazing, once you don't get the radiation of one blast, it's amazing how much high levels of radiation humans can actually live safely with. I was looking at there's a place in the Caspian Sea, on the Iranian side of the Caspian Sea, where they have radiation levels that are like Fukushima.
Yeah,
and they're naturally occurring. And they've no cancer. Wow. It's almost like they're living in full-time chemo, like low level chemotherapy.
Yeah.
So it's such an interesting thing, It's such a there's probably it was a horrific disaster when it happened. You can actually see the films. That elephant's foot thing, that would be something, wouldn't it? But when it was going on, you see there's even videos of a helicopter dissolving above the reactor, literally dissolving in midair.
Yeah.
So that, it's just, I couldn't imagine what the energy was like there. You might have answered the question I was going to ask before Jason asked, what's the scariest place you've ever been to?
The scariest place, well, for me was India.
Yeah, India has its own, and
I suppose a lot of people go to India for the peace and the zen and the quietness, but I just found it so overwhelming with the senses. And there was a couple of reasons why it was particularly scary for us and mightn't be for somebody else, but like we had hired a driver to bring us around Rajasthan because it was more efficient than getting the bus, and Carlo wanted to go to special places for pictures that he wouldn't be able to get to with public transport. So, and he drove like a maniac, so we were kind of terrified of other bus drivers, himself. The traffic was chaotic, so every day was just like we were bracing ourselves for an impact, and he eventually did crash with us in the back, killed a deer. Then there was other instances where it's just very intense, India. Like to describe it, like you have no personal space.
No.
And there's kind of boundaries there that we felt very intimidated, especially being a woman in India. For me, it was quite scary.
It was very, for me,
and that's just honest. I know some people,
you get people that'll say, you're crazy, but anyone, like we've talked to people that have lived in India 15-20 years, and they will tell you, look, in like any country, there's safe places, there's unsafe places. You can be in the wrong place at the wrong time, all this sort of stuff. But it says in general, because of their beliefs and stuff like that, it isn't entirely safe for a white female to be just walking down any street there. Now that's just my opinion on it as well, but they also kind of confirmed that. But I was from a point of view of trying to make sure everything was okay. I was so stressed all the time about something happening to Flower. So, it got to the stage that, where she'd have to walk in front of me walking down the streets because you wouldn't know what the guys were going to do or pull or,
we found many of them would just take out their camera phone and they just go up and they just start taking pictures.
Yeah, and they go right up beside you. It's an invasion of personal
and it
space.
just, and then our scariest experience happened there as well when we got into, it was our own fault, it was late at night, we got into an unlicensed taxi where the guy was like outside the airport. We were just wrecked. We wanted to get to a hotel or B&B or whatever, but he was like, I'll bring you, and Carlo's rule is always I'll pick a taxi driver who I know I can outrun or I can physically be on top, or so that was the rule. So we picked one that he thought he could manage. So we got in, put the bags in the back. As soon as we got in, he locked the doors, so we were like, oof, whatever. But on the way out of the airport, he stopped and he picked up another passenger, which was his friend, which was like, he was 6.5 foot tall, big guy. And we're like, oh, that's it. We're done. We're done now. We're going to be on the news, these two backpackers. But we went, and I had on the GPS, I had the route to the hotel where we said to drop us off, but he went the wrong way.
He was going the complete other way. So I was saying to Flower, we were in the back kind of talking to myself, and I could just feel myself getting very anxious. Like, again, I just been overcautious because, I'm there to kind of make sure someone else in my company is protected. But it was going the opposite direction. So I said to Florence, let's give this a few minutes, see how this plays out. And as it further and further, you could see our point here on the dot where our hotel was, and we were just going up this way. And I was like, this, and we were on like, you know, like equivalent of a bypass. So I was thinking, like, what? I don't have nothing to defend us. I have nothing. The guy that hopped into the passenger seat was obviously drunk. You could smell the drink off him and all that. And I was thinking, you know, this is what you hear on the news, like two stupid backpackers and all that. I was thinking, oh God, this is crazy. Like what? Anyway, ends up, he pulls in off the road and he lets his friend out.
And we were like,
so he was only giving them a lift somewhere, but okay. And that was fine. But we were really, really kind of had enough at this stage. So I said to the guy, he was starting to make his way kind of in a circle, a semicircle. And I was thinking, okay, he's going the way back. But I says, I don't want any more thing. So I says, see this hotel up here? Actually, that's our hotel. Of course it wasn't. But, you know, he goes, really? And I was like, yeah, just let us off here. We'd be sound. And I was thinking, just get us out of this taxi. Yeah. So we got into the tank. Nothing happened, obviously. Got into the hotel and we were just like, we're never doing that again.
Yeah. You know, so it was a lesson. Yeah.
But, you know.
You should have told them you were an Italian Irish. You had the best of both stereotypes. But listen, you mentioned something about roads. People don't understand how bad the roads are, even in Eastern Europe and stuff like that. But in the developing world, atrocious. I think that's where you're more likely to have an accident is on the roads. They're just the bits.
They are. Yeah.
I was in Delph Island and I was in a tuk-tuk again, and the road was like, you know, the worst road in Ireland was like a snooker table or a pool next to what this thing had, you know. And the guy was doing like 60 miles an hour, and at one point my sphincter went up into my skull when he hit a hole. But you know, it's like when you hear these things, this is the thing that they never tell you about, is the danger you have to be careful on the roads in the developing world. They just don't look after them. They just don't, you know. Yeah. You know, so they built them once in the 50s and then they left them. They didn't.
Yeah. That's it. They forgot about them.
Yeah. But so that India, I've heard that from a lot of people. It probably would have been okay if you were on your own as a fella.
I think so. I mean, I wouldn't have been as stressed about having to, you know, watch for Florence, because obviously it's just a different, when there's a female in the equation, I think it changes everything. Now you'll meet people. I mean, we've met single female travelers, solo female travelers. They've been traveling around India
and they love it.
They love it. And they will say, never felt, and that's fine. You know, I mean, you know, perception can be a lot of what goes on as well, that you can manifest it into reality. But at the same time, we were just cautious because we said, you know what, we're not taking any chances. We never do when we go to not strange countries, but new countries that we're not familiar with either. We don't go like out looking for a crazy adventure like some people do. And that's fine as well. That's what they want to do. But we were like, no, we're just happy kind of going about our business the way we like.
Yeah, kind of a low-key adventure.
Exactly. And if something crazy happens, it happens.
Tell us about the most mysterious, like ancient place. Tell us about the most mysterious ancient place you've been to. That would be
Machu
Picchu, Bolivia, Peru. I think both of them are like, when it's like for us, it was like you're stepping back in time, especially Peru. Cusco in Peru was something out of a movie set, like you were, you know, 200 or 300 years ago. They dressed the same, you know, apart from cars and modern buildings and that, it really looked like you were coming back into a stepping back in time. And, you know, Machu Picchu as well
itself was it's mesmerizing, really, you know.
Yeah, it really was. It was all that it was claimed to be, and it lived up to the hype as well, because like just to see how they created such a structure high up in the mountains, it's ridiculous, like how they did that. So I suppose that would be mysterious. Yeah, mysterious, it would be, because there's so much kind of history there as well.
Yeah, that sense of awe.
Yeah.
It's something, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like a few years ago, I was in Geneva and I was staying with a friend there, and we went up to the back of the hills behind where they lived, and it was like this place where people go hang gliding, and it was just like, it wasn't high mountains. It was like the kind of mountains we have in Ireland, you know, roundy top things, right? And we walked up to the top of the hill, and he says, walk up to the top of that slope there. Just walk to the top of the hill and look over. And you couldn't see nothing except the sky. So you just think it's going to be more hills. when I got to the top, Mont Blanc in front of you like that across the valley, the whole mountain in its majesty, it was like a religious experience.
Yeah.
It was frightening almost, you know, to see, you know, just above that little green patch of grass right across an alpine valley, there was Mont Blanc. And it was just like, Jesus, you know, the size of it, the immensity of it, the mountainous of it, you know, the kind of whole thing. Yeah. These are things that you can't explain unless you've seen them firsthand.
It's true.
It is, yeah, it is. It's, as you said, magical as well. Like there's something inspiring about something like that when you experience it.
That's why I think there's such a demand for people writing about it.
Yeah.
Did you try the chicha in Peru, where they chew up the what is it, corn, and ferment it with their saliva? The older women of the tribe make it. It's like a beer made out of fermented, chewed up, spit out corn.
No,
I don't think so.
No, I don't think we tried it, but I do kind of know what you're talking about, because you would see the chilitas on the side of the street chewing on something, but we never tried any of that. I didn't even know what it was, to be honest. So, you know,
I do know someone that's had it. I did a book tour with John Perkins, who did Confessions of an Economic Hitman, and he told me that he got like wasted on that beer, and it's just, I just couldn't imagine even putting it in my mouth, you know.
Yeah.
He said, like, I guess that's the kind of person he was, but wow, that's intense. And also, what about Jason's part of the world, the Pacific Northwest of the US?
We did a month-long trip back in 2008 where we rented a car in Vegas because we love Vegas so much. We've been there like 7 times, whatever. We drove down to San Diego and we basically did 101 all the way up to San Francisco over the course of a month. We loved it. I mean, we love the west coast of the States anyway. We just think it's perfect climate for us. We love the heat. We love Vegas, obviously, because we've been there. We've lived there 3 different times for 3 months at a time. And so all that area of the States is just stunning. We love it there.
The national parks are like some of the most beautiful we've seen out of all of our travels.
Yeah.
Yeah. The West Coast is like that. The 101, like you're saying, that's just a magical route, you know, especially I was living in San Diego at the same time there, like 08 to about 2011 time frame. But yeah, my hometown is just right up the 101, Ventura. I don't know if you stopped there at all.
What's it called?
Ventura.
I think we did.
Did we? Okay, yeah, because I remember we were stopping in like San Luis Obispo, is that what it's called? And Monterey, Big Sur, and all that.
I think we did.
Them little towns were just so like quirky and full of character. That's kind of what we love, is visiting these like little spots that have so much going on in them, you know. Really cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But again, just, you know, like you're saying, magical landscape there. You can drive within 2 hours in Southern California. You can be in the snow, you can be in the desert, you can be in the ocean, you can be in the forest. Yeah.
Exactly. It's got everything.
You're very lucky.
Yeah, very lucky.
Yeah, and now up here in the Northwest, it's still West Coast, but it feels like a different country up here, and the people are very different. I don't know if you've been to Oregon or Washington at all.
No, we haven't been that far up there. No, not yet.
The people here aren't quite as welcome, or they aren't welcoming like the people in, because, you know, if you're in Southern California, everyone's your friend, right? You go to a bar, make friends with everyone. But up here, no, there's none of that. So that's been a culture shock for me. But it is beautiful here. The mountains, you know, we got all these active volcanoes, which bring an interesting energy here. But you got to come up here sometime. You know, there's always a place to stay here. So.
Well, if things change,
we're there.
We're gone.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I was supposed to go out January, and I had the ticket paid for and everything, and the bloody visa, the whole lot. And then Mr. Biden decided Ireland was on the infection list, you know.
Yeah.
And it was just like literally 2 weeks before. It was just sickening, you know.
Yeah.
But what can you do? You guys, you can't make a living because of it. We'll talk a little bit about that later. That's the positive stuff for now. Well, actually, have you ever, like in my travels, I always meet someone who, if I was ever to write a book, it'd be about this strange encounter with this individual. It was like, you know, you might be in a train station and someone starts talking to you, or you might be in the middle of nowhere and you meet this interesting person, and it's like you're trying to put your finger on what kind of person they were. and it's almost like they were invented for that moment. I'm sure you've had lots of experiences like that.
Geez, off the top of my head, I can't think. I mean, of course, we come across some very interesting, colorful, strange, weird, crazy people it's just to think of one that stands out. But
we probably met so many of them.
We do, like, of course, where we meet some strange characters, and this is, I think, across the world, bus stops are one of the most craziest places. From a bus stop in Sligo to a bus stop in, Delhi, I think you're going to meet some shady characters, colorful characters. I just think a bus stop is so we're always kind of, when we go there, we're always expecting we can meet some really cool people here. Also, you can meet some shady people, but that's the beauty of it. You don't know what you're going to get. So, and then you could be like, you could be on a bus going somewhere for, like, we're in South America, and you'd be hopping on one of these buses for 16 hours, 18-hour trip, and you could be sitting beside one of these characters, chatting to them, learning about their, as you were saying, learning about their history and their culture and that. So it's a really cool experience, the bus stops. But I can't think offhand of someone that stands out like that.
You're right about the bus stops. There's a notorious one in New York called the Port Authority Terminal. I don't know if you've been in it.
No.
I don't know if it's been cleaned up, but like back in the 80s and 90s, it was like Taxi Driver with buses. It was
right.
like really, it's in Hell's Kitchen, and a very, very busy bus station. But you're right, they do have a spookiness about them. Busaris in Dublin is a very spooky bus station. There's something really strange about that place.
Yeah,
it was built on an ancient grave burial ground or something. And I know, I'm not saying that maybe it wasn't, but I mean that's like the
it should be.
I hate being in there. I hate being in there late at night.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a weird experience I had in there. A guy I went to school was a homeless person there. Imagine that, like actually meeting someone from school and they were homeless.
Oh wow.
Crazy.
He was sitting in the corner eating a box of Kentucky Fried Chicken. And he looked at me and I looked at him, and he knew who I was. I knew who he was. Wow. It was like this kind of, I don't know, it was like the beginning of a kind of a Kafka story or something.
Yeah.
It was just that couldn't have happened anywhere else other than a bus stop. The amplification of the strangeness of it,
Yes.
There is something about them.
Yeah.
How do you manage your insurance and things like that? If anyone else was thinking of doing this, what do you pay as you go? You like your health insurance and things like that?
Yeah, well, because we were out of Ireland, we'd only come home once or twice a year, depending on what part of the world we were in. We used to just get your backpacker's travel insurance. But we found that what was happening was we're starting not to renew the company we were using. It was the last time or the time before, it basically says, you need to be at home for 6 months before we can renew your policy. And I was like going, well, how can I do that when I'm stuck over here in Southeast Asia? Like, well, how does that work? And this is, well, we just can't renew it.
So now they're making it more difficult, as with everything. They want you to pay per day because they're realizing that people like us who go for longer than 6 months, they're like, well, they have a greater chance of putting in a claim. So they're cutting that now, where you have to live in Ireland to get insurance. For the kind of travel insurance we were getting, you have to live in Ireland for at least 6 months of the year. There are companies out there that will insure you for longer. You just pay more.
There is a company though that a lot of people that are doing what we're doing it's Safety Wing, I think their name is. We haven't used them personally, but you can pay per day or per week, and there's no problems there. They'll insure anyone. So that's a really good company. Anyone thinking of doing something like that or is confused about the travel insurance, just go with them. So yeah, it's that's what we went with.
One of the things I was going to ask you is that we tend to stay away from politics on this show, but because of your guys and your predicament and you're trapped basically, and your careers have been nullified by this whole thing, I've decided, I'm not going to ask you personally what you're going to do, but I've decided no matter what, if I have to stay in Ireland for the rest of my life, I'm not taking the vaccine. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And I have lots of reasons for taking that. One of them is I'm an asthmatic, so I am quite frightened of any kind of thing about it, but I also don't like this particular one, the more I read about it. And I mean, how that must have been, this must have been awful for you. You know, basically, not only do you have your career taken from you, but you also have your, you know, are you stir crazy? How does it feel?
Honestly, no, I'll tell you, it's people think that actually because they don't fully actually understand, even if some of our friends to this day don't actually know what we do online. So the
travel blog is gone in terms of making money from that.
Yeah, because we made some sponsored content on the blog, and that was like a small bit of residual income. That was never our main hub, and it still isn't. We have our content agency. We also now have a digital market agency where we do SEO for clients. We look after their build websites. So again, we have a team as well that does that for us. But
we were very lucky, because had we not branched out into that area and we were dependent on the travel blog and travel content and getting sponsors on board, we'd have nothing.
But so we've not been affected at all in terms of our income from
well, we have
a bit, but it's not at all compared to what some people are. The only thing that has affected us really is our lifestyle.
Yeah.
Really, that's in a nutshell. That is.
Yeah, but that's still a big deal too. I mean,
massive. I mean,
and like a lot of the companies we work with are in Australia. So because they've been affected so badly with their lockdowns, that obviously has a rippling effect to us. So our income has been affected for that reason, and the lifestyle as well, as you said.
Yeah, I'm in the same position. I used to travel to make films, but I have Jason and Timony in the US who now kind of like this side of the channel, you know, and I need anything there, they can go film it over there. So I mean, it's definitely a great thing to fall back on, to have that kind of network. And you're lucky, and it's funny, it happened both to me and you guys at the same time, that we kind of like found the network right before the lockdowns. It's very strange. I can remember I probably took the last flight into Knock Airport from Liverpool, and literally they were locking down the country, and I was so depressed. I was saying, this is not going to be 2 weeks. The bastards are going to milk this for what it's worth. And there was like me and 6 people on the plane coming into Knock, and it was like surreal. And it was like probably one of the last flights into Ireland before they shut everything down. But how do you have? I mean, no, we can only guess. But what kind of feelings do you have about this going forward? Will it dissipate? Will it open up? Will we be taking tests for the rest of our lives?
Well, yeah, we both very early on, when we kind of discovered that this thing was a lot more than what they're saying and stuff like that, we both knew that this will end up with the vaccine somewhere at some stage. We knew this back in even April, May of last year, just with the stuff we were seeing and hearing. So we were like, okay, if that happens, they're not going to let go of the vice grips on the travel thing. They're going to have you wanting to take a test, and neither of us are going to take a PCR test or a vaccine to travel. It's something that we just did.
You're not going to take the PCR test?
No. I won't take a PCR test. I don't like the idea of something like a cotton bug going up my nose. Just have a thing of that. I'm certainly not going to take an experimental vaccine. No way.
But it's so sad, because some days when you think back of the life that we have had over the last few years, that's never coming back. That level of freedom, I think.
Yeah.
That we could just jump on a plane and say, okay, we're going to go here today. Like, apart from showing your passport and your visas and things, I don't think we'll ever get back to where we were in terms of freedom. Yeah,
I don't think so either. I think there might be, maybe, I mean, you can only hope and wish, but even if it does maybe relinquish somewhat, there would be some sort of tracing or tracking, more so than we're already used to pre-COVID. But, it's not going back to.
I think testing will be mandatory.
Yeah, I think testing, like worst case, would be testing to our best.
And they'll come up with some stupid test that takes a second or something, like
yes,
the iris scanners in airports. Remember when you had all the checking, and then they said let's speed the process up, and also someone posted some machines they have in airports around the world today. You've seen some photos that are for the digital pass, and they were saying, if this is only a temporary thing, they're not putting this kind of infrastructure in now.
No way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Spending all that money.
It's the same with, you see, at the start, it was like 2 weeks and we locked in for 2 weeks. And then you had all the decals on the supermarket floor with like the social distance. And I'm going like, this isn't going to be just for a few weeks or a few months. Like, they're not going to put all this effort into these 2 meter distance things and sanitizer. And this is here for a long, long time. And, 15, 16 months later, whatever it is, it's still there.
And it's that whole trauma-based mind control thing with the fluctuation of put the pressure on, ease the pressure off, ease the pressure on, and just creates this fluctuation. And it's hypnotizing people, and it's tragic. But I know for we have these conversations, and I forget every once in a while that the world's ended. It's like, oh yeah, you guys come and visit, Thomas, come visit. And it's just like, oh shit, there's no. So what, in the UK you can't leave at all, or do you have to be vaccinated to leave the UK and Ireland?
In Ireland and the UK, you can still go to countries with a negative PCR test, obviously. Within Europe.
Or your cert of recovery. So they're the 3 options. You have your cert of recovery to say you've had COVID, your vaccine passport, or your negative PCR test.
And we have none of them.
Yeah. But yeah, over here in the US, you guys are on our nobody allowed from list. God.
Yeah.
Oh, I was a little bit hopeful we could get in with like an antigen test or something there a while back. And when I went onto the website, it was like, you're not letting anyone in, right? On tourist terms.
I think so, yeah. And
it's on a country by country basis.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure Ireland is still excluded unless you're a rock star or a private jet.
Of course.
I was going to say something about Afghanistan, but I'm not going to go there.
Yeah.
But
I'm going to be positive about it, okay? Because it's we are in the darkest part of it all, and it does feel like this. And I think that something tells me, I may be naive, that it's not going to be as bad as it is now, or what we think it is what we think it's going to be. I think they'll have some kind of test that won't be so intrusive. Like I said, the iris scanner or something like that, maybe something simple like a temperature test or something to speed the thing up. Because eventually the airlines are going to have to put pressure on the governments to get their business back. And I know there's other aspects where they're trying to cut down people's carbon footprints and all this. And there's other agendas at play here. But I think it'll probably go back to how flying was in the 80s, where it was expensive. But it was, anyone could do it really, but you had to save up. It wasn't like it has been in the last 25 years where it's like taking the bus. I think those days are over. But I'm going to stay positive and believe that this will come to an end, and we got people like us will get to travel again. But it'll be just like 9/11. We have to like there'll be the COVID version of taking your trousers off, taking your boots off, and taking your belt off.
Your trousers in the airport, Thomas.
No, I have it down to an art form. I have a pair of braces, suspenders made with Velcro, and I can literally do that, right? But one time in an airport, I was slightly too cocky, and I pulled it off and trousers went down just under my arse. But I grabbed it just in time. But I thought it was so slick. If you have a belt or a suspenders, a braces removed, I was like,
yeah.
And that was an actual real Freudian slip there. But we have to laugh at it, because otherwise we'll go bonkers. We were saying that on Saturday. We have to kind of maintain when we were talking on Saturday, you have to kind of maintain our dignity and our humanity at any cost in all this. And I don't think they could keep up the charade that they have now forever. Eventually people are going to see what's happening. Maybe it'll take a little while longer and have to knock on their doors, but there's going to be a generation who will grow up and say, why should we be denied this? So I'm kind of hoping a generation coming along maybe in a few years say, hey, why can't we travel? Why can't we do this? And that might change it. But I'm not going to be overly negative about it. We will travel. I can feel it. Something tells me we will travel again, but it's not going to happen tomorrow, and it's probably not going to happen till next year, or at the earliest next summer or something like that.
Yeah.
But you know, we don't know what kind of games they play. They seem to switch one agenda on and switch other agendas off.
That's true.
Like in America, I was looking at the American news sites, and everything is Afghanistan. It's like COVID never existed.
Right.
Exactly.
So you know, because it's not a fashionable issue anymore, politicians may detach themselves from enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly.
Fingers crossed, something like that.
Yeah.
As you said, you can just have to be positive about it, because we're prepared to wait it out because of our belief in, you know, standing up for what we believe in, you know. So I mean, we're prepared to do that, and we definitely think hopefully sometime soon we'll get back to at least doing some form of travel. Might be like we said, but it'll be some form.
Have you been doing anything like making a point of seeing parts of Ireland you haven't seen yet?
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah,
I think anyone anywhere in the world should be doing that. Like Jason,
Absolutely.
like Jason has been doing lots of traveling around where he lives. Yeah, go see places in your own country you've never been to.
Exactly, you have to. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I see the other beautiful thing about this is, like, we wouldn't be here doing this call, talking to each other, working with Thomas, all these things. Like, it's kind of like this has been the most interesting point in my life since all of this, you know, since everything locked down, kind of playing the hermit a little bit. And, you know, like you guys were saying too, it's like you kind of removed yourself from the society that, you know, you're part of before, and then built something for yourselves. You know, just like Thomas did with his channels, and, you know, me coming along, Timothy coming along and helping things out. It's just like the kind of the next Renaissance thing we've talked about before with Thomas. Like, yeah, you know, there's all these people that have been through some real tough shit the last few years, but man, it's making us stronger. And you know, all the projects that come out of it, and it might get real frustrating and disheartening sometimes, but it is a kind of been like the best, you know, best 18 years of my life here, the last year and a half. You know, I've done so much, you know, with this little laptop here and working with Thomas and everything. It's just been beautiful. And
That's great.
You know, exactly. Yeah.
It takes some time. Like you said, what you started in 09, 08, you're saying with the traveling, and then
the first
it
trip
takes time.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's it does take time, and you know, nothing good happens overnight either. So if, you know, more than this channel and building up other channels, you know, it takes time. But when you're putting out good content like you guys are, it's just going to snowball and compound, and you know, it's building for the future.
Yeah, it's an investment. Everything like this is an investment in the future.
Of course, yeah.
So that was brilliant. Do you have any, before you go, tell us where people can find you, what plans you have? I mean, are you going to write a book or make films or something like that about your?
So you can, our website nextstopwhoknows.com is, you know, it's not been active.
we have neglected.
Yeah, it's not active at all the last while. You know, it's not because.
Simply because our heart wasn't in it. We were at home. We were kind of like, oh crap, what do we do? We don't know. We're stuck here, and that was kind of when we came home first. But we've since traveled a good bit in Ireland, so we're going to get back into it, blogging about what we've been doing in the last couple of months and our plans for the future.
Yeah, I'm into photography. So as soon as the lockdown, when we came home from Vietnam to make it before the country went into lockdown, I started taking photographs of our town here in Boyle during lockdown, and I thought, you know, for a couple of weeks, get great shots of, you know, abandoned shop windows, all that sort of stuff. So 16 months later, I'm still documenting the effects of Corona the Boyle through the lens of COVID, if you like. So, you know, I eventually want to be able to get some interviews with locals on how, you know, COVID affected them, like their you know, accounts of what it meant to them. Like some of them obviously buried a family member, weren't able to go and see, you know, go to the funeral or something like that. So I want to kind of get an account of a lot of different people around the town, put that combined with the photographs into a book of some sort, and just sell it locally for, you know, a local charity or something like the Northwest Hospice that do great work. You know, something like that. So that for me has given me a kind of an outlet as well during this whole lockdown stuff that was going on. I was out with my camera night and day sometimes, and just, you know, taking different photos to document this really important time, because I think in hopefully years to come, we're going to look back on this and go like, wow, that was a crazy time. Here's some really, you know, interesting photos of this time.
Boyle's an interesting place. I spent some time in there a few years ago.
Really?
I've actually made a short film there. I was up in the famine, the famine workhouse at the top of the hill there.
Yes,
It's in ruins. And I was making a music. Well, I was just recording some guitar music and stuff with backing tracks. And I went up there to film on like a cheap camera phone. And I got this beautiful footage of 2 pigeons flying out a hole in the side of the famine workhouse, and it just was so evocative and beautiful.
Yeah.
And there's also up by the train tracks, there's a lot of like 1970s factories that were all closed down.
Yes.
So I broke into loads of them. They're really easy to get into. You could get into them through things like the roof, and like they had the fire escapes. So I spent the whole day exploring these factories. That's loads of opportunity there for like arty kind of things. And
absolutely.
Well, one of them was a huge factory, and it was I got up the fire escape, went over the roof, and there was a kind of a ladder down into it, and I got inside, and just enormous space, and all the machinery had been taken out of it. It was just literally the columns, but it felt haunted. There's something about those places. But Boyle is an interesting place. You're in a town that has a kind of a spooky vibe. The way I don't know what it is, but the architecture is quite incredible. The beautiful Victorian architecture around King House, that avenue down. I mean, it's you feel like more like you're in a European city. It's more like a boulevard. But
it's interesting as well, because it's also, there was a film being shot here about a month and a half ago on something that happened up in Granard in Longford, a really dark story up there, but that was filmed in Boyle, and the cast members or the producers were actually telling locals that Boyle is the perfect location because it's based in the 80s, the film, and they said it's perfect because Boyle hasn't changed from the 80s structurally. It hasn't, so they shot the entire movie here in Boyle. So it's and
you have that incredible abbey from the Middle Ages there. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Which has a round tower on it. A lot of people don't know that the turret on the corner was actually a real Irish round tower. That they built the walls of the abbey into it. You have Lough Key Forest Park, which is the most beautiful place in the world.
It is. It really is a stunning place.
Jason, it's islands in the Shannon River with castles on them.
Yeah,
it's like fairy tale. Yeah.
Jason's like, I'm coming to visit you.
I know. I need to go to the US here soon.
But it's like that's another thing. You also have to appreciate where you live too.
Oh, 100%. And we're so lucky.
Yeah, we are so lucky,
to be able to have green spaces, get out among the trees, the lakes, everything. We're so lucky.
Very lucky.
Well, we'll put a link to the website underneath the whole film, the videos that's going along, and we'll have you back on again when we have news and things are happening. We want to catch up. We've made a point, Jason and I, to catch up with everyone.
Brilliant,
to see how things have progressed. It's not just a one-off thing.
Yeah.
So that was really the Chernobyl stuff. I could have spoken there about that. That alone was fascinating.
Yeah.
But thanks very much for coming. Thank you,
Jason, and thank you, Thomas.
Not at all. Thank you, guys.
Thanks very much.
And thanks, Jason, for running the show again. And we'll see you. We don't have a guest lined up, but we'll find somebody soon. But we're all very busy at the moment doing things in our daily life. So we'll see you on the next symposium. Look after yourselves and feck them if they can't take a joke.
Cheers, guys.